thank you. Hi, Leslie, good to see you. Hi, Linda. Hello, Connie. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Hi, Beth. Good to see you. Hi, Neil. Good to see you. Okay, I think we'll wait 30 seconds now. As people come in. I know. After a rainy morning, yeah.
Oh, yeah, this week is my birthday.
Oh, happy
It's my
birthday.
birthday.
Oh, look, Alina's coming.
Oh, or what are the day that was 6 is Tuesday? Whose birthday?
It's your birthday today, Ro?
No, it's my birthday on the 6th.
On the 6th. Got it.
Yeah.
And today's what, the 8th?
Oh, so it was. Happy birthday, happy belated birthday.
Happy belated birthday.
My name is Rain.
Ray.
Rain,
Rain.
like Geshem.
Oh, beautiful.
Oh,
Rain.
Oh. Just the way it sounds.
okay,
No.
I think we're gonna get started. Shabbat shalom, everybody. We have such a juicy parsha today. It was hard to land on anything,
Yeah.
but I landed on something. After planning to do something else came out. So we'll see what it is in a little while. Let's do the bracha over Torah study. Thank you, Caroline. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu asok
b'divrei Torah.
Amen. Blessed are you, source of the universe, who has commanded us or sanctified us with your commandments and commanded us to soak in your sacred wisdom. Okay, so today we're going to be looking at the story of Lot and his family, and specifically zeroing in on Lot's wife, who the Midrash calls Edith, right? The Torah itself does not have a name for her. She goes nameless. And what happens to Edith, and what sense can we make of her turning into a pillar of salt? What is that about? And people have different ideas of what that's about. I have both traditional commentary and contemporary commentary, and even a poem that's not actually consciously, as far as I know, about this story, but feels like it speaks to it. And today I want to teach in honor of a friend of mine, Rabbi Shimon Hirschhorn, who's very, very ill, and dedicate this session to whatever refuah is possible. Okay. Here we go. Edith, Lot's wife, a pillar of frozen grief. So, my title itself comes down on an interpretation of the story, but I don't want to close off interpretive possibilities. I want to keep them open and see where we all land as a community. Thank you, Abigail. Thank you very much. And here's a painting by a painter named Rachel Clark, who I don't know, of Lot's wife. Hi, Elena. Good to see you. And you can see that pillar of white, and perhaps the red being the fiery Sodom and Amorah, and maybe the brown being the wilderness that she and her husband and daughters were facing. So it's evocative. Okay, so let's look. I'm going to skip around the story, and hopefully the text that I've included will shed light on, ultimately, on Lot's wife and her experience, and the meaning as a whole of the story. So if you remember, Abraham separated from his nephew Lot. He went one way, Lot went the other way. They couldn't kind of share the landscape together, and they decided to split up. And Lot went to a place that was actually referred to in the text as a garden, which is really interesting. And before this story in Genesis 18, three angels, and we'll see this in a minute, just as in way of contrast, three angels come to Abraham to announce the birth of Isaac, and then two of the angels go to good morning, shalom. Two of the angels go to Sodom and Amorah to basically to destroy those cities for their evil and to save Lot and his family, and also to let them know what's happening there. Okay, so it says Vayavo Shnei Malachim Stoma, and two angels or messengers went to Sodom at sunset. Lot Yoshev B'Sha'ar Sodom, and Lot is sitting in the gates of the city of Sodom. Now, before I even finish this verse, I want you to keep in mind the beginning of Genesis 18 and how Abraham was sitting outside his tent, looking for visitors, looking for guests, which was certainly a huge value, hospitality in the ancient Near East, and remains one to this day. And the value of hospitality takes very specific iterations in the story of Abraham and in the story of Lot. Okay, so Vayar Lot, and Lot sees Vayakam L'kratam, and gets up to greet them. Vayishtachu apayim arza, and bowed down to the ground twice. Okay, Vayomer, and he said, Hine na Adonai suru na el beit avdechem, and said, now pray, my lords, pray, turn aside to your servant's house. Velinu v'rachatzu raglechem v'hishkamtem v'halachtem l'darkechem vayamru lo ki barachov varchov nalin. So he said, now pray, my lords, pray, turn aside to your servant's house, spend the night, wash your feet. Starting early, you may go on your way. And they said, no, rather we will spend the night in the square, or we prefer to spend the night in the square. But here's what Lot does, vayipsar bam ma'od, and he pressures them or even forces them, press them exceedingly hard. Vayisuru elav vayavo el beito, and they turned to him and came into his house. Vayas lahem mishteh umatzot afa vayochalu. So they turned to him and came into his house. He made them a drink fest and baked flat cakes, and they ate. So if you recall what Abraham did, instead of bringing them in, Abraham runs out to greet them. And some look at this story of Lot and his hospitality as sort of the inverted version of Abraham's hospitality, right? It's all about going in, and it's ultimately actually about incest, right? Because his daughters trick him and sleep with him, right? In the post-destruction phase. Karen's like, I don't remember that. That's a little freaky.
Remember that.
You remember that? Okay. So it's just like, All right. So let's look at Abraham for a second. So remember, Abraham had just been circumcised, and still he's sitting outside of his tent looking for, purportedly, according to the Midrash, looking for guests. Vayar elav Adonai be'elonei mamre, v'hu yoshev petach ha'ohel kechom hayom. And God appeared to him in the terebinths or the oaks of Mamre, and he is sitting in the opening of his tent, or by the opening of his tent, at the heat of the day, or like the heat of the day. So the Midrash says, like, why does it say like the heat of the day? So the Midrash says is that God made it really hot, so Abraham would go back into the tent and rest, but it didn't deter him. He still wanted to greet guests, right? That value was such a powerful value for him that there he was in the heat of the sun outside, even though he was convalescing. Vayisa einav, and he raised his eyes. Vayar, and he sees. V'hinei shosha anashim nitzavim alav, and there are three men standing up against him. Vayar, and he sees them. Vayaratz l'katam, and he runs to greet them. Mit petach ohel, from the opening of the tent. Vayistachu arza, and he bows down to the ground. So this is a fascinating, chapter, but specifically these two verses are really mysterious because God appears to him. And what does he see? He sees three men. Right? So that's strange. Now, Christian tradition sees this as a source of the Trinity. 1 equals 3. You know that, Thomas? You do. Okay. You do indeed. Not only do you know it, but you know it indeed. So, what's going on here? And then Hasidic interpretation has it that, these three men, like having guests in your house as if you're receiving the face of God. Right? So it is an appearance of the divine, but in the form of being human. Vayomer Adonai, im na matzati chen beinecha, al na ta'avor al avdecha. So he said, my lords, pray if I have found favor in your eyes, pray do not pass by your servant. But Rashi has it that he's talking to God and saying, look, God, we're in a conversation. I want to talk to you, right? A conversation that was started in verse 1. But first I have to deal with these people because receiving guests is even more important than receiving or the divine. So that's a little bit of comparison, the running out instead of the bringing and pressuring them to come inside, right? That's a little bit of, a taste of the differences of these two stories.
Can I make one comment?
Yeah, you may.
It seems to me that he does see God first, and then he sees the men, and I think just the adjacency of those two.
Ooh, I love that
sentences.
word. Adjacency.
Yeah, they're adjacent to each other.
Yeah.
There is by association something godlike about these men.
Yeah.
He's making that association.
Yes. Well, or the text is
or the
making
text,
that.
or the
Absolutely.
text is, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah, so that's present.
Yeah. Well, you're saying you think he sees God, but when when the text tells us he sees three men. Text doesn't tell us that he sees until there.
I'm such a literalist. I say.
You're saying in the appearance he was already seeing. Is that what you're saying?
He sees God, and then he lifts his eyes up. He's seeing.
I see what you're saying. Vayera elav. Well, what it says in verse 1 is that God appeared to him. So it could be that the seeing already happens there. That's correct.
I think there are two seeings. There's perhaps an internal seeing of God, and then when he lifts his eyes up, he sees these three men or angels or messengers, and he is in a godlike state already, having, perhaps the divine is with him. And so everything he's seeing is with those eyes.
Beautiful. Love that interpretation. Love that. Asher Chaim, did you want to say anything grammatically at this moment? Should we bring in your voice?
Well, if you want to stipulate that we're going to use the midrashic sources that say that this happened right after the circumcision, for example, and the midrashic source, I don't know, I see Abraham and Lot like a sort of a Laurel and Hardy, or the two comics where one of them is suave and dignified and knows exactly what to do, has the savoir-faire, and the other is just a bumbling, blithering, well-meaning whatever. And I really like Lot. And both sides of Abraham and Lot are going to be necessary for producing the messianic line. Abraham through Judah, through Tamar, Lot through the Moabites.
Absolutely. But
so, when people are sort of dissing, when people are sort of dissing on Lot.
What? Spoilers. Too many spoilers here.
I don't like the dissing on Lot that you find in so much midrash. By the way, it occurred to me this year, maybe earlier, but I'd forgotten. Abraham never invites the angels into his tent.
Yeah, I
So,
just said that,
so
exactly.
all of the
He does the
business,
opposite, he does the opposite of Lot, exactly.
so all of this mythology that we have of Abraham's tent was open in four directions to welcome strangers. Nobody gets inside except maybe Sarah. It's her tent.
That's really interesting. But
Hey, Rabbi Dan, sorry to interrupt you. The Zoom, it's just the camera just turned off. I could ask Victor about it if you want me to.
wait, the camera turned off?
Yeah, I could hear you guys, but I can't see you guys.
The owl camera.
Yes.
Oh, the owl. We didn't do anything. What should I do?
I will contact Victor. That's what I'm going
Thank
to
you.
do.
So
Yeah.
sorry about that. Can you see me anyway because my computer's on?
Yes.
Okay, cool, great. Okay, I will contact
Okay,
Victor.
so but yeah, do contact Victor. That'd be great. And let me just say one more thing in response to Asher Chaim. So you're saying Lot's not such a bad guy. On the other hand, he offers to throw his daughters out to these.
Talk about spoilers.
Wait, hold on. Okay, Asher Chaim, I'm going to invite you to mute.
I'm sorry. By the way, Abraham offered his wife to Pharaoh. Let's not forget that.
I know. Okay, I'm not done though with my point. Hold on. I'm gonna say Lot offered to throw his daughters out to these rapists. On the other hand, Abraham sacrificed his own child and also pretended his wife was his sister. So no one's innocent here. And I appreciate your sort of stepping in the way of this extreme contrast that I was drawing. And yet I still do think there's a contrast.
But why are they doing that?
Why are they doing what?
Sacrificing daughters, pretending wives, and are you gonna get to that? Like, why do they do all that? Why are they doing that?
Why are they all
Why is that necessary to do in those days, or in stories?
Why is it necessary to do that? Why is it necessary to do it in these days?
Okay.
I'm asking you a real question. I'm not sure those days and these days,
Are so different.
well, in terms of morality,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think so. I mean, that's not my impression.
Okay.
That's a big, that's a,
Sorry, I just.
no, don't be sorry. It's disturbing, of course. David, do you have like a really quick comment about that?
I just jump in here.
You have to, go ahead.
Things were, it was very different. Things were done.
Sorry, please bring the mic closer to you, please. Thank you.
Is the mic?
There isn't
working?
one over there. Yeah. Here,
Here, I'll come over, I'll come back.
I don't,
Oh, I thought we had more than
Yeah.
one
okay,
mic,
thanks.
no?
No, you don't need close.
It's because we must be here. Deep brain.
I'm not gonna assume theories
Something here, I don't
that
know.
in those days, everything was sacrificed, children were sacrificed. And one of the great things that I love, spoiler alert, is that I think the whole story of the sacrifice is exactly the break of that, because
Yes.
children were sacrificed
Yes.
all the time.
Yes.
So for him to follow, Abraham go and then almost, and you're like, no, it's the animals you sacrifice now. It's a real break, but
Yes.
to equate our day with that day is not, it's not even close.
Okay, I'm gonna cut this conversation because it's too big and vague, and we're gonna go back into the text. No, don't apologize. It's all good. All good. What? It's all good, but I'm gonna go back into focusing on this text before us, and then, God bless you, and Amy, I will call on you afterwards, after this next sort of set of texts. Okay, so I'm skipping, it wasn't a spoiler alert, because I'm skipping the whole scene where the men of the town want to basically rape the messengers, the angels, and Lot wants to send out his daughters instead, but a miracle happens and that doesn't happen. But the next thing we have is that the men convey the message that they're there to convey. So, vayamru anashim el lot, od milacha po, hatanu banecha v'notecha v'kol asher lecha ba'ir, hotset min hamakom. The men said to Lot, whom else have you here? A son-in-law, sons, daughters, bring anyone whom you have in the city out of the place. So it's time to leave. It's time to get out. We're in source 3. 13. Ki mashchitim anachnu et hamakom hazeh. For we were about to bring ruin on this place. And I bolded that word mashchitim because it's the same word used in the Noah story for what people do and what God does in terms of destruction. Ki gadla sa'akatam epnei Adonai vishalchenu Adonai litshachata. For we are about to bring ruin on this place, but how great is their outcry before Adonai, and Adonai has sent us to bring it to ruin. So I was reflecting on this cry business, which I never noticed before. Who's crying? So one would think that those who are doing evil in the place are making their victims cry out. But if God destroys all of Sodom and Amorah, then the victims are not saved. But if you think about Egypt and the Israelites crying out, they eventually emerge. But no one here emerges except for Lot and his family. Okay, 14. Vayidaber Lot, I'm sorry, Vayitze Lot vayidaber el chotnav, lokchei v'notav, vayomer kumu tzu'u min hamakom hazeh ki mashchit Adonai ha'ir, vahi kemitzachek be'einei chotnav. So it says Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law, those who had taken his daughters in marriage, and said, up out of this place, for Adonai is about to bring ruin on the city. When the eyes of his sons-in-law, he was like one jesting, or one just making jokes. So it's not believing the bad news, right? You know, what comes to mind for me is how people don't believe the news about the climate crisis, right? It's people mock, some people mock that. Ukamo hashachar alav ve'itzu hamalachim belot lemor. Now, when the dawn came up, now remember, again, a kind of contrast with Abraham. Abraham is the one who was always getting up early in the morning and going out, right? So here the dawn has, the sun has come up, and the messengers sort of are pressuring Lot or pushing Lot, saying, Kum, kachet ishtecha ve'et shtei benotecha, take your wife and your 2 daughters, hanimsaot pen tisapeh ba'avon ha'ir. Uh-oh. What?
Not going through your bag.
Oh, no, I didn't think so. It was massive heroism.
I'm so glad we have a savior in our midst.
I did not do it.
Oh, you didn't?
I was about to.
Okay. So up, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, lest you be swept away in the iniquity of the city. So now pay attention to what Lot does. So Lot does, for all Abraham's faults, this is something that Abraham never does. Vayit mama. And Lot delays. Lot doesn't want to go. And that's understandable, right? Who wants to leave their home? Who wants to take in this kind of news? So Lot delays, and what happens? Yachaziku anashim biyado. So the men seized his hand, uviyad ishto, and his wife's hand, biyad shnei benotav, and his 2 daughters' hands, bechemlat Adonai alav. I think with the compassion of Adonai, or since Adonai's pity was upon him, vayotzi ehu vayanichuhu, and they took him out and they placed him michutz la'ir, outside of the city. So remember just the way that Lot sort of pressured them to come into his house. they are now grabbing his hands and dragging him out of the city.
So when it says the men, it means the messengers.
Correct. Correct. So there's this sense of unwillingness to go, very clear sense of unwillingness to go. So 17, Vayihi hotziam otam achutza vayomer himalet al nafshecha al tabit acharecha. It was when they had brought him outside that one of them said, escape for your life, do not gaze behind you. The al ta'amod b'chol hakikar, do not stand still anywhere in the plain. Hehara himalet pen tisapa. To the highlands escape, lest you be swept away. Okay, so what's this whole thing? Why can't they look back? So you can understand why they shouldn't stay still, right? It reminds me 9/11 and people are like running from that like huge cloud and, you know,
Sure.
that sort of terrifying, like you can't stand still. Why can't they look back? What's the problem? So I'm just gonna ask that rhetorically and let's look at some responses.
This is a narrative question.
Yeah.
Was this city always already going to be wiped out, or was it a punishment for this rape of the angels?
There wasn't a punishment for the rape of the angels. There's a conversation, which I should have alluded to.
Sorry.
Or no, you shouldn't be sorry. I should have given this context. So God hears the cry coming up to him or
Right.
her or whoever. God hears the cry of the Sodomites and the Gomorrites, the Amorim and the Sodom. And the reason that God hears the cry is that the people are evil. And God says to him, to God's self, should I hide from Abraham what I'm about to do, which is destroy the city? And then they have a whole conversation. And Abraham says, are you gonna, if there are 50 innocent people, are you still going to, wipe these out? So it's like a famous conversation. So there's a whole plan to wipe this out, to wipe these towns out because of their evil. And what happens with angels is another instance of their evil. It's like a subset of that evil. Is that clear? Yeah, and it's so interesting because it's how this town treats the stranger and treats the guest, which seems to be in tension with what Abraham does for sure. Okay. So don't look back. Al tabit acharecha. Ata hirshata imahem u'b'schut Avraham ata nitzal. So you, Lot, were evil with all of them, but in the merit of Abraham, you are saved. And chak kedai lerot b'pur anutam va'ata nitzal. It's not fitting that you should witness their doom, which you yourself deserve, while you yourself are escaping. Like there's no reason why you should escape. So don't look back as if you are an innocent one that escaped. Danny, you have a question?
No, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
What doesn't make sense?
Like, you don't merit to have escaped, so you don't, it's not fitting. Like, I just don't, like, I don't know, like,
enjoy their suffering because it also belongs to you.
don't enjoy their suffering. I
Like,
mean,
don't get a thrill out of their, maybe, don't revel in their suffering because you actually enjoy it. You actually deserve it.
as I read the story,
Yeah.
like, these people don't want to leave. They have their home there. They were very successful there. I would think that looking back would be traumatic. It wouldn't be like an enjoyable thing. So that's why it's like, it seems weird.
I agree. So in other words, Rashi's not working for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, fine. We're gonna find other interpretations which may or may not work. Let's see what happens. Okay, so Rashbam. Al tabita acharecha, don't look behind you. Bishvil tsa'ar chotencha shebe'ir. So this is more along the lines of what, of your interpretation. On account of seeing the anguish of your sons-in-laws in the town. I don't understand this translation, but it's okay. In other words, don't look behind you. You're going to see the anguish of people you care about, your family members. The od ki hamebit acharav mitakeb b'derech. The other thing is, if you look behind you, it's going to delay you. You have to go forward. You're in danger, right? Very pragmatically. So those two really make sense to me. גם שלא להסתכל במלאכים ובמעשיהם שלא לצורך. In order not to afford them an opportunity to see the angels performing their destructive work as angels when there was no need for them to witness this. Watching divine beings in action and being saved by such spectacles requires divine intervention and should therefore be avoided. In other words, if you look back, you're going to see, in some sense, some manifestation of the divine. And there are limitations in the Torah for how we witness the divine. Okay, so I'm not going to read the proof text. I'm going to go forward. But first, yeah, I'm going to take some comments, but Amy's been waiting. And then what was you sharing?
Just had a quick question.
Yeah, okay.
When the Israelites are crossing the sea.
Yeah.
Do they look back and see the Egyptians drowning?
That's a really interesting.
Because I do, this is the first day I was feeling, not just on Lot's behalf.
I
but
think we do look
everybody.
back by Yair, and then they see
did.
them like dead on
They do.
the shores. I'm pretty sure that sentence is there. Yeah.
Because there is, I think, not just for Lot, but for everybody, for the reader, there's that trickiness of if something horrific is happening, like there's, I know a poet whose, was it father or grandfather, witnessed a lynching. Do you look or do you not look? And there's the witnessing aspect, but is there also somehow, well, it's not me. And there can be this sort of schadenfreudian pleasure
Yes.
in it.
That's what I think Rashi may have been speaking to that Danny didn't like. It's like, that doesn't make sense, right? So would there have been this pleasure that Lot should not
Yeah.
have engaged in?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But I think even for the reader too,
Okay.
in some weird way.
Is that directly on this point, Eric?
On
Because otherwise,
not looking back.
what?
On the point of not looking back.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, and then I'm gonna call in Amy. Yeah, we used to have more of these. I don't know what happened.
Now we have to look.
No, I have to look back. Yeah.
I've never seen this as avoiding the catastrophe. I see it more that their attachment to the evil. And looking back is kind of like a way of saying, I'm really kind of like one of them. I really don't want to run away. And if you have to cut, if you're worthy of being saved, you have to cut your attachment to that evil. So looking back is kind of a way of being ambivalent. Don't be ambivalent, get out of here and understand that.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yeah, it does.
It's like, I don't want to leave. And that's really consistent with the story because they don't want to go and then they'll look back. Absolutely. Thank you, Eric. Okay, Amy.
So I want to answer two questions that you haven't asked.
But briefly, because we still have a
I'll
lot
be
more-
brief. I would like to support
Yes, yeah.
Asher Chaim in his feelings for Lot and his support of Lot. The question is in chapter 19, verse 29, it says that God remembered Abraham, so he sent Lot amidst the upheaval. So the first question you should ask is, why did God go through so much trouble to save Lot? What the heck did he do that was so good that God should go through all this trouble to send his angels and do all this stuff? So that should be your first question. And the answer to that question is that when Abraham was in Egypt and he told the Pharaoh that Sarah was Lot's wife, he knew better. He knew that Sarah was not his sister, but he didn't reveal the matter because he took pity on Abraham. So for this, he was saved. So the second question is, you said they cried out. Why did they cry out? That's a question everybody always asks. Why did they cry out? And what were they crying about? There were 4 rules in Sodom. Any stranger found in the vicinity of Sodom would be robbed and his money would be taken away. It's the duty of the Sodomite judge to ensure that every wayfarer leaves the country penniless. That found handling food to a pauper or a stranger, you would be put to death. and anyone who invites strangers to a wedding would be punished by having all his clothes removed from his body. The story is that Lot's daughter secretly gave food to a beggar, and she was observed, and she was then killed for giving food to a beggar. And I believe that she was put in a pot with honey and allowed to have the bees attack her. Is that the story you know?
It is, thank you.
Okay.
But
So you had two questions you didn't ask, and I answered them.
thank you very much, Amy. So, and note that all the midrashic understandings, if not most of them, I don't know if all, see the sin of the Sodomites as sort of rejecting the stranger or rejecting the guest in some way, like sort of blocking out the outsider. And we'll see more of that. What?
No.
No, okay. All right,
Send a citation just to that.
yeah, you
of
can.
Witness and seeing.
Yeah.
It was in my mind, so I looked it up. Like, it's the last verse of chapter 14 of the book of Exodus where they actually make the point of saying, and Israel saw that great work which the Lord did upon the Egyptians.
Yeah.
And the people
Okay.
feared the Lord and believed the Lord and his servant Moses. So like,
Okay.
you didn't need to say that, but it's actually the last verse of the whole chapter.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
So the question is, did they look back as they were fleeing, or did they look back after,
This is once they're on the other side.
once they're on the other side? Okay, so that's instructive. Yeah, that's different. Thank you. Okay, so let's look at how Lot's wife turns into a pillar of salt. Verse 23. Hashemesh yatsa al haaretz. Velot ba Tsoara. The sun was going out over the earth as Lot came to Tsoar, which might be a place of grief or suffering. Sa'ar. Adonai himtir al Sodom v'al Amorah gafrit ve'esh me'et Adonai min hashamayim. And Adonai rained down brimstone and fire upon Sodom and Amorah, coming from Adonai, from the heavens. Vayahavoch et ha'arim ha'el v'et kol ha'kikar v'et kol yeshvei ha'arim v'tzemach ha'adamah. And God overturned those cities and all the plain and all those settles in the cities and the vegetation of the ground. V'tabet ishto me'acharav. But his wife gazed behind him. V'tehi netziv malach. And she became a pillar of salt. Now, there's this rabbinic idea of measure for measure. Actually, Tomas, I thought of you when I included this.
Sorry about that.
This conversation, no, it's good. Because it can be very uncomfortable. Like, did she deserve this punishment? So according to the Midrash, which Rashi picks up on, yes, she did. And let's see why. And this is also in line with what Amy was telling us about the Midrashim, about the sins of Sodom. The Tabet Ishto Me'acharav, who's Ish? Oh, she looked behind Lot somehow, which is interesting. V'tehi netziv melach, and she became a pillar of salt. B'melach chat'ah u'b'melach lakta. She sinned with salt, and with salt she was punished. Amar la'atni ma'at melach li'orchim halalu. So Lot said to her, give a little bit of salt to our gifts. Amar lo af haminhag hara hazeh ata bala hanit b'makom hazeh. And she said, this bad custom, this evil custom, you're bringing here to introduce into our city. In other words, don't give these guests anything. Don't give them salt, right? So there's this stinginess, there's this lack of generosity. And, whether you think it's exactly the opposite of Abraham or not, and it's not, because Lot does have, he is sort of trying to be hospitable. It is in contrast to Abraham's great magnanimity. Because, there's such details about what he and Sarah make and offer. And those details aren't in this story. So, so the Torah's sort of bias is clearly for Abraham and not for Lot. Okay, so now let's look at understandings of why she turned into a pillar of salt. So she looked back. According to the biblical scholar Nachum Sarna, she lingered in flight and was overwhelmed by the spreading devastation. And that's why she looked back. So that makes sense. But there's again that sense of lingering. And the Torah doesn't like lingerers. The Torah likes those who wake up in the morning and don't resist and go, right? A pillar of salt. The salt too may have a symbolic function in the ancient Near East. A site was strewn with salt as a mark of eternal desolation and punishment for disloyalty and a breach of a treaty. So that's interesting. That somehow the Torah might have been building on that sort of ancient Near Eastern context of what salt, of salt as a signifier. Okay, so now let's see what some of the Midrash says. This is Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, and it says, "Ukashem shechzik lo bidehem shel hamalachim." So just as Lot sort of took the hands of the guests, the hichnisam letoch beito, and brought them inside his house, kach hechziku biyado. That's how they took his hand. Ubiyad ishto, and his wife's hand, ubiyad shtei benotav, and the hands of his two daughters, the hotziu otam michutz la'ir, and took them outside of the town. Shene Amar, as it is written, vayit mama vayachziku anashim. And they delayed, and the people sort of grabbed their hands and went. So, just as Abraham, whether you like it or not, is a model of willingness in the Akedah and other places, right, to sort of follow God's voice, Lot is a model of someone who resists. Imru lahem al tabitu lacharechem. So say to them, don't look behind you. Shaharei yarda shchinato shel hakadosh baruch hu lahamtir al sdom v'al mora gafrit ve'esh. So don't look behind you, because behold, the shchina, the presence of God, of the holy blessed one be God, came down to spread fire and brimstone on Sdom and Amorah. Irit ishto shel Lot nichmeru rachameha al benotaha hanesuot. And Irit, that's funny, I think it's Irit in some places and Idit in some places, but I'm not sure. Irit, his wife, the wife of Lot, she was filled with compassion for her married daughters, because her single daughters came out with her, according to the Midrash. And she looked back. Are they coming with her or not? Are they there? Like, where's the rest of her family? Now that's understandable, right? Where are they? And instead she saw behind her the Shekhinah, God. And she became a pillar of salt, because you can't behold God and live.
Yeah, right.
Right? Okay, so that's what this Midrash says. And then there's a beautiful contemporary Midrash about what's happening here. And it calls into question this measure for measure. Okay, I think I'm going to read this one in English, but the Hebrew is also beautiful, but it's a lot. Actually, Sharon, do you feel like reading this?
I'm going to read the Jane Hirschfeld.
You want to read the, okay. Tomas, do you want to read this? Okay, great.
This one, number 9.
Yes, just read the English.
Okay.
Okay.
And as they were bringing them out, he said, escape for your life. Do not look behind you and don't stand still anywhere on the plain. Escape to the hill country, lest you be slain. As the flames began to devour the houses of Sodom, Lot said to his wife, quick, get some bread and a stein of water, and we'll run for our lives to be killed.
Okay, so here's a contemporary midrashist named Ruti Timur in Israel. What images is she playing with when she says a bread and a skein of water? How's that resonating?
The Egyptian wife.
Abraham sends out Hagar just with some bread
Exactly.
and a skein of water into the wilderness. So she's picking that up. Okay, go on.
She said, We'll save ourselves and our daughters will stay here. And how do we know Lot had other daughters who stayed behind? At the outset, it says, and the men said to Lot, who else have you here? A son-in-law, your sons, your daughters? And later it says, get up and take your wife and your 2 remaining daughters. We learn from this that the married daughters stayed behind with their husbands.
That's a reasonable conclusion, right? That kind of works, not only midrashically, but in terms of how the story works.
He said to her, quiet woman, do as I say. She was silent. And the angels took them out of the city, and Lot did not say to his wife a word of what they said. He walked sure-footed, and she lagged behind him. Her heart was heavy upon her. She looked back and saw her city, her family, and her property going up in flames. And his wife looked behind and became a pillar of salt. Tear after tear dripped from her eyes, and the tears grew fuller and fuller, stronger and stronger, until they became a pillar of salt. She stumbled and fell and stirred no more, and Lot did not look back. Our sages of blessed memory said, with salt she sinned, and with salt she was punished. And I say, she sinned not, but was punished all the same. That's what I say too.
I know. So that's a powerful midrash, and it's also a powerful disruption of a midrashic principle, which is measure for measure. Like, just as you do, so you will be, so that will come back to you in the same measure, right? It's a big rabbinic principle, and it often works biblically. Doesn't always, but even when it doesn't, the rabbis sort of read the text as a literary mirror, right? What she did, what happened to her must be as a consequence of what she did, and it must be a mirror image of that. Okay, Rachel.
I'm a beginner at this, and it may be.
By now, you're not a beginner anymore. You've been at this for years, Rachel.
Well, in literature, but not at this high level. Look, I am astounded that the
We can
Bible
people
doesn't.
online here, Rachel. I just want to make sure.
Oh, I don't know. But yeah, I
Yeah,
think I'm
okay.
here. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
astounded as a debutante. Where in the Bible does God go to Abraham's kin and say, hey, I did a great job on Mount Sinai. Do you want buy-in? I'll give you an extension course. How did these people know they were sinning when they were doing what everybody else was doing there in Lot's land?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question.
Thank you.
And it reminds me of the book of Jonah, where people are in fact warned, and they do make tshuva because they're warned.
Yeah,
And here, there's not much of a process.
yeah.
Yeah, we're left without a response. Yeah, Julia.
Okay.
Well, two things. One is like the maybe obvious sexism of like, and maybe just cutesy, like at this time feeling like, women, they're such criers, they're such babies, like I'm gonna make a turnout where those tears really get them in the end. Like someone who's been like spurned by women's tears and like can't tolerate it, and then like this whole, and it's just written by men, but that's not
Wait, are you saying, and then they turn her to like a pillar, like, because they can't deal with a woman crying, basically?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, what is the text? So but I just really, it's for you to, but that's not my main point. My main point is back to what you said before about like why they favor the looking forward so much, and not because I'm a Greek mythology scholar, but because I've seen Hadestown. Like there's like that whole thing about looking back, and like if you look back, it's like for eternal damnation, and you can't, like you're not gonna find your one true love, or like there's I just wonder what the historical significance of like is it a moralizing of looking back, or is it a warning to be safe, or is it just like now we hold so much nuance all the time? We wish sometimes, and then like it was just more straightforward than like, it's better if the early bird catches the worm. It's better to keep it moving forward. It's better to jump and keep it going, like you said in the mornings. Like, I'm just interested in what that's about, because it seems very important.
Well, I'm curious about your own experience. Like, do you feel like there's something that resonates for you personally in terms of looking back and looking forward?
Yeah.
Like, how are you making sense of it?
I think that when you're in a challenging position and you're trying to decide what to do, that like kind of, well, I'll just bring it to a more, I have to bring it to a more general, but like, I think that indecision can be so painful and can leave people.
That kind
without
of,
their
that kind of stuckness.
power. Yeah, yeah.
Well, as you're speaking, it comes to mind that it's true that Torah is so much about looking forward and going forward, and that's essential. Like Lech Lecha Avraham, like go from everything and leave that behind. And on the other hand, there's Zachor, like remember.
Right.
So there's the looking back and there's the looking forward. The question is, when is it time for each?
Right.
And I also think resistance is like in a separate category. Like there's something about resistance that really does get in the way of life. Yeah. Okay. If the looking back was an act of, resistance,
Yeah.
not in a positive sense, but like Eric was saying, like they just couldn't leave that way of life behind and they kind of wanted to be part of it.
Right, right.
So you can interpret her in different directions. Okay, Sharon
Very quick.
and then Rob and then Miriam.
It is very gendered. I thought you were gonna go to the place of, it's the disobedient wife. She's not even given a name. She's just
She's
known.
not even given the name.
Right, she's just known by her function. And it's like, I think it's meant for the reader, look, slap down any transgressive woman.
That's right.
So I can't not.
Well,
think-
yes and no, because look what happens with Lot's daughters, as Asher Chaim,
Right.
the spoiler over there, was saying at the beginning that, his daughters,
That's.
say there's no human life here. We're going to sleep with our father. They make him drunk and then they pave the way for the messianic line. So the transgressive daughters are held up as heroes ultimately, and the creator of the Ruth line. So
Ruth is descended from that.
yes.
Right,
Yeah,
from
good
the
for
Moabite.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
That's
Like
true.
that despicable, horrible story is in the end lifted up.
And still.
And these transgressive daughters, are protagonists.
Yeah.
So now what?
But it's the wife.
But it's the wife, it's the wife.
Well,
Wife who gets blamed for everything, right?
Well, I mean, even effect also, there's a way, I don't know, it just seems, those troublemaking women.
Yeah.
They're not,
Yeah.
There's
they're
an interesting
resisting.
counterpoint in Bronze Age legend, which is Orpheus and Eurydice.
Yes.
Because there it's the
man.
husband
Yeah.
who looks back and the wife is punished for the husband's lack of faith.
Yes.
He's trying to
Yeah.
keep her out of the underworld.
Yeah, I just watched Black Orpheus.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Oh,
my
that's
God.
amazing.
Oh my God. So that looking back.
Yeah.
And
Because he doesn't-
the lure of looking back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he looks back because he's afraid she's not following. She's not there.
Yes.
Right.
So it's the
He's
easy
afraid
part
she's
is
not
like-
there, just like the wife is potentially afraid that her family's not with her.
Yeah, something.
The other thing that really sort of,
Writing at both of those.
it's doing the writing. Yeah, you always have to ask
So it's
that question. Absolutely. But okay, so people online are waiting. So I just want to say one more thing, which is, it gets to me that salt are tears without wetness, right? So is it a kind of stuck or frozen grief that she's sort of representing? And that's kind of heartbreaking. And maybe Lot didn't have the capacity to feel that. Who knows? I don't know. Okay, Miriam, Paul, Barbara.
Thank you. I'm thinking about what you started with, a pillar of frozen grief, which, I could use that. You had me there. It's beautiful. And I'm thinking about this through the lens of grief. And you used the phrase lingering and also talked about, God doesn't like us to linger. The Torah doesn't want us to linger. I feel that grief and the deep process of grief is lingering, is being with, is not fleeing, is looking back, is being present, is all kinds of things. It's not the process of fleeing. And yeah, and fleeing is so much connected, at least for me, and also with these stories, to trauma.
Yeah.
And so how much of Torah also is this, this book of trauma, continuously moving forward, trying to escape. And, what do we sacrifice by not lingering?
By not
Not lingering.
Yeah, no, I think that's beautiful, and not being in your grief. That's very powerful, and I do think it speaks to our moment, which feels like all kinds of traumas are rearing their stories at this moment. Thank you. So yes, so can we linger in our grief and not turn into a pillar of salt?
Mm.
Okay, Paul and then Barbara.
Can't hear you, Paul.
Paul, you're muted for some reason. You don't look like you're muted, but you are.
Maybe I should be muted.
Uh-uh.
I could hear you. I could hear you when you got close to the camera, when you got close to the mic.
Can you hear me now?
Try again.
Well, you know what, Paul, I'm going to suggest either you put it in the chat or you go out and come back in and see if that works.
That's okay.
We'll see you next week.
Okay, sorry, Paul. Barbara.
Then we can look at it.
Hi, everyone.
Look back, right.
Shabbat shalom. I just had this fleeting thought when we were discussing looking back and reading that one section we did, Modern Midrash. And, I think we talk about going forward and just like Miriam was talking about lingering, I think that looking back and looking at history, for example, is a way, of course, to learn the most and inform us the most. And when we don't do that, we don't learn from the past, and we don't learn from history, and we make the same mistakes over and over again. And we can talk metaphorically and symbolically in so many ways, but if we're not doing that work of actually going inside and looking at the past and what we did and how we can learn from it, then things will just keep happening. So
you're defining at this moment looking back as looking back at history and understanding the story and the patterns so that you can go forward in a more
right.
Yeah,
So like if you see that everything's blowing up and maybe it was a nuclear explosion, I always think about that. What are you learning from it if you're turning your back and you're just running away?
Yeah. Okay. So, and this speaks to the question of like, what kind of turning back was it? Was it, connected to what Eric was saying, was like the turning back of like, oh, I don't want to leave that way of being. I want to be there. I don't want to go. Or is it turning back of seeing, one's family with me, or like, what are people going through that I left behind? Or is it the turning back of, thank you, of bearing witness.
Right. What happened?
But doesn't the outcome of turning into a pillar of salt inform what?
I'm sorry, could you speak closer to the mic, please? Thank you.
The outcome of turning into a pillar of salt, doesn't that determine which of these options we're choosing as to what looking back?
So Amy, I think that's a great and critical point, and it depends how much you trust the Torah. In other words,
we're reading it.
Yes, we're here as students of Torah, absolutely. And we're also free to open up other possibilities that are not in line with what happens to her, maybe because of issues of sexism or gender.
Okay.
No,
but I mean, you can do that, you can endlessly.
Yeah.
And I personally do that all the time anyway. I
Do
feel
what?
like endlessly make my own interpretations of what I already know and understand from foreign, like material that I'm learning. I endlessly extrapolate to what I already know and experience. And
But you're saying here, like, maybe we should be looking at what is the messages that these doctor trying to tell us.
I don't know, like,
Right,
so
like, let's just.
I feel like I've graduated in open book to not always wanting to do that.
So absolutely beautiful, Amy. And I love that you're looking at how you're reading things and how we're reading things. So I certainly don't want to skip over the Torah's message. And at the same time, I want to make some room for other interpretations. Okay, let's go on. But that was a great meta comment, inviting us to consider how we're reading and the interpretations that we're coming to. Right? So actually, I'll ask you later, Amy. Okay, let's go on a little bit. And we're gonna end with a spectacular poem, which is not literally about this, but I think it really speaks to it. Just one more time. Julia, do you feel like reading the next midrash in English?
Sure.
But you have to, yeah, you have to be near a speaker.
Is this one more?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
A heart swollen with compassion, number 10. The Open Door Tale of Edith and Passover Paradox by Rabbi Sandy Sasso. So often before, Edith had followed Lot and had not turned back. This time was different. This time she turned back. Her heart swollen with compassion for her daughters, she looked back out of mother love to see if they were following. She lingered out of sympathy, out of lament for human life destroyed. She turned out of regret and anguish for life's grandeur wasted. Her turning was also a question, like Abraham's to God. Is this the birthing of redemption or the world's final Kaddish? She turned and beheld the back of the divine presence and was consumed in tears. Were her tears for Sodom or for God? No one saw with Edith's eyes the wrath of God poured upon Sodom. Only her daughters bore witness to the reflection in their mother's eyes. From the descendants of Edith's daughters came Ruth, the great-grandmother of David, Naamah, the mother of Rehoboam, and from these kings we are told the promise of the Messiah. Tradition records the day of Edith's death on the 16th of the month of Nisan, the time when, centuries later, Israel would be freed from Egyptian bondage. When Edith confronts in all its ugliness that which brings death and destruction, she refuses to give her consent to turn away, to follow the vision of another's eyes and the path of another's foot. She becomes a witness. We have become accustomed to seeing the pillar of salt on a barren plain as an eternal symbol of punishment for disobedience. In light of Edith's story, that pillar becomes a monument of tears. The tears of Edith, an eternal symbol of loving kindness. Edith's daughters saw her act of love and her defiance. They saw the way of Edith, the recovery of the soul with a raging kindness. From the descendants of the daughters of Edith comes the promise of the Messiah.
Thank you. Thank you. So, if you think about what her daughters ends up doing as sort of morally disturbing as it is, getting their father drunk and creating new life, that's also their way of going forward, right? Creating new life on this earth when they thought everyone had perished. So the text, despite the fact that incest is clearly against the Torah, the text holds that up for us. So that's kind of amazing that the Torah puts before us some such contradictions and teaches us from that line comes ultimately redemption and comes David. Okay, I'm gonna invite Sharon to read the last poem. Actually, no, I want to do Abraham very briefly. So look what Abraham does right after the story, which again, I think is instructive in its comparison to Lot, right? Vayashkem Abraham baboker. Abraham got up early in the morning. Ela makom asher amad sham et penei Adonai. Started early in the morning to the place where he had stood in Adonai's presence. Vayishkof al penei Sdom va'amorah va'al penei haaretz hakikar. And he looked down upon the face of Sdom and Amorah and upon the whole face of the region of the plain, and saw Vaya'ar, v'hinei ala kitor aretz kakitor hakivshan. And here the dense smoke of the land went up like the dense smoke of a furnace. Vayhi b'shachet Elohim et arei hakikar. Thus it was when God brought ruin on the cities of the plain. Vayizkor Elohim et Abraham. that God kept Abraham in mind. Vayishalach et Lot mitoch hatecha, and sent out Lot from the overturning. V'hafoch et ha'arim asher yishav ba'en Lot, when he overturned the cities where Lot had settled. So again, Abraham, Lot is not evil and Abraham good, but Lot is a model of resistance, where Abraham is a model of waking up early. Right, which is different. It's actually more complicated. It's not about good and evil. It's about going forward or not going forward.
That's right.
And, I don't know about all of you, but I think all human beings struggle with going forward. I mean, I get up in the morning, I'm like, I don't want to get up. I don't want to do whatever I have to do. Right? There's always some measure of resistance. Let me just see what Richard says here. Zohar perfects the analogy between Lot being unaware of his daughters lying down or rising up while in drunken sleep. Yes, with Boaz's lack of awareness of Ruth lying down at his feet or her rising up before another one could recognize another. Yeah, there are incredible literary parallels between Lot and his daughters, Tamar and Judah, and the book of Ruth in terms of what these men recognize and don't recognize and see and don't see. So that's the other tension here. It's like seeing and not seeing. Going and not. Okay, let's read Salt Heart. So I heard this poem recently because Lauren Jacobs, a beloved member of the Romemu community, lost her father, and at Shiva, she read this incredible poem, which to me, so on different levels, brought to mind this story.
Before, I just wanted to insert this point, which
Yeah.
is one of the most beautiful passages I have ever read is by Walter Benjamin, the great Jewish philosopher, about the angel of history, and who is looking backwards while the future is pulling him forward. There's a great wind. It's an extraordinary passage. I have it. I don't know that there's really time for both.
How long is it?
It's a paragraph.
You were looking for it. Got it.
I have it. I
It's
have it.
amazing.
It is one of the most beautiful.
Just do it, Sharon. Take it away.
Hey Sharon, can you bring the mic a little bit closer to you, please? Thank you.
I can't hear you, Caroline.
Can you bring the mic a little bit closer to you, please?
Oh, sure. Eric, if it's only one line, but we need to.
Okay. Okay.
Eric, want to say something?
Oh.
Yeah.
I thinking of Kohelet.
Yeah.
And it's a time to do this and a time to do that. And a lot of the discussion has been dichotomizing everything. Like, should we be here? Should we be there? Is it okay to be here? Is it okay to be there? And it's all in due time. All of it is part of what we need.
It's actually a good segue to time in history.
Good segue to time and history.
So this is Walter Benjamin. A clay, meaning Paul Klee, a clay painting named Angelus Novus shows an angel looking as though he is about to move away from something he is fixedly contemplating. His eyes are staring, his mouth is open, his wings are spread. This is how one pictures the angel of history. His face is turned toward the past, where we perceive a chain of events. He sees one single catastrophe which keeps piling wreckage upon wreckage and hurls it in front of his feet. The angel would like to stay, awaken the dead, and make whole what has been smashed. But a storm is blowing from paradise. It has got caught in his wings with such violence that the angel can no longer close them. This storm irresistibly propels him into the future, to which his back is turned, while the pile of debris before him grows skyward. This storm is what we call progress.
Oh my gosh.
It's an extraordinary, it's a poem. It's really extraordinary.
Thank you. I'm going to put it on the search sheet later.
I will,
Thank you so
yeah.
much.
Fabulous.
Okay, so this is Jane Hirschfeld, Salt Heart. I was tired, half sleeping in the sun. A single bee delved the lavender nearby, and beyond the fence, a trowel's shoulder knocked a white stone. Soon the ringing stopped, and from somewhere a quiet voice said the one word, surely a command, though it seemed more a question, a wondering perhaps. What about joy? So long it had been forgotten, even the thought raised surprise. But however briefly, there, in the untuned devotions of bee and the lavender fragrance, the murmur of better and worse was unimportant. From next door, the sound of raking, and neither courage nor cowardice mattered. Soon enough, that gate swung closed. The world turned back to heart salt of wanting, heart salts of will and grief. My friend would continue dying, at last only exhausted, even his wrists thinned with pain. The river, suffering, would take what it wished of him, then go. And I would stay and drink on as the living do, until the rest would enter into that water. The lavender swept in, the bee, the swallowed labors of my neighbor. The ordinary moment swept in, whatever it drowsily holds. I begin to believe the only sin is distance, refusal, all others stemming from this. Then come, rivers, come, irrevocable futures, come, come even joy, even now, even here, and though it vanish like him.